Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Raghu Banda. I would first like to thank Mr. Andreas Welch for a fantastic opening for week 4 and the introduction that he has provided with regard to the machine learning and predictive analytics solutions that we are building in the context of the intelligent enterprise. So today in this unit 2, I will be talking a bit more around the architecture and the concepts. So here is the brief agenda that I have for today. We'll start with the basic decision tree and the approaches around why we pick and choose one of these approaches depending on a particular requirement. And then I go into an architecture overview. And after that architecture overview, I'll go into a bit more details about the embedded models and the side-by-side models. So without further delay, let us now jump into the decision tree and the approaches related section. So here, I know this slide, when you see, you might think that, hey, what is this? There's so much of complex slide with a lot of big flowchart and a lot of things happening here. I do not want to confuse you, but it is very easy to interpret this. There are 3 different things happening here: a simplistic scenario, a complex scenario, or an out-of-box or a explorative scenario. That is what we are trying to explain here. In the middle part, you see, if it is a particular requirement from a customer, a simple use case which doesn't have much data need and it has low CPU usage, you can pick up the middle scenario where you have the embedded machine learning, where you use the HANA-based APL or PAL approaches. And on the right hand side, now, if you have a complex scenario with some deep learning techniques that are needed, whether it is voice recognition or image recognition or video text recognition and those kind of things, we leverage this rightmost side scenario where it is the side-by-side machine learning models, which is where you have a lot more data, and sometimes the data might be coming from different sources. That is where we use the side-by-side machine learning. And on the leftmost side, you see a different kind of a thing where a business user, a typical example is that a business user want to create a quick predictive dashboard, which can also have some planning related functionality. That is where you can quickly pick up one particular S4 whitelisted CDS view, bring this CDS view, create a custom CDS view, and then leverage it using the live connection or data acquisition approach with SAP S4, SAP Analytics Cloud, and then quickly create this. So that is how this decision tree happens around picking a particular approach. Now let us go a bit more into what are these approaches. Now that you understood how you want to pick a particular scenario, you know that you have made the decision. Let us now understand what are the different ways of doing it. In the first approach, like I mentioned, in the embedded scenario or the simplistic use cases where you don't need a lot of external data, the data is less, you could leverage and you can build it into the SAP S4HANA business processes where you use the, again, ISLM, which is the key ingredient, the ISLM framework, embed it into the S4HANA business processes using either SAP HANA APL algorithms or SAP HANA PAL algorithms. Now, if in the second approach, like I mentioned, there is some additional need about getting external data from different data sources. This is where you could leverage, and then there might be some deep learning techniques required. So here there are 2 different things. One, you might want to use some additional non-SAP predictive algorithms which are outside of SAP HANA, where you could use Python libraries or open source R or Google TensorFlow. And also maybe there might be scenarios where you want external data sources. So here you could use the data intelligence platform, or you could use the readily built AI business services. Now in the third approach, you have your SAP Analytics Cloud. So in this approach, like what I'm saying is that there are scenarios where there are situations when a business user wants to create a quick template and showcase it. You can use the SAP Analytics Cloud predictive services, the Smart Predict or Smart Assist. You can also add some planning functionality there on top of that. Bring the connect it to a particular CDS view in S4 and create this quick win templates. Now, in the fourth approach, what we are saying is that any of these models you use, any of these approaches you use, there are scenarios or there are situations when you want to enhance or modify them. That is where you use this fourth approach. Now, let us get into the section 2, where we want to briefly touch base on the architecture overview, the big picture. This is where the big picture of SAP S4HANA, the intelligent ERP, as you might see here. On the left-hand side, you see the SAP S4HANA on-premise or the cloud solution, cloud, and on the right-hand side, you see the SAP Business Technology Platform. Again, here in this slide, you see how a particular end user is interacting on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you see how a particular data scientist or external users are interacting. When you see on the left-hand side, take the example of this S4HANA on-premise or the cloud. There are scenarios where you have these embedded machine learning scenarios that we are building. These embedded machine learning scenarios will be embedded using the analytics, the embedded analytics that you see here, or the Fiori UI, and that is how your end user predictions are leveraged. And in the middle layer, you see your different virtual data model and the business events and the ISLM lifecycle management, which is the key ingredient how we build these. And that is where you have your application sitting. On the bottom, you have your SAP HANA database, which is where you have your HANA ML layer, where you have either you pick up a PAL or an APL library, and then you build your embedded machine learning models. And on the top layer, when you have your application, you use the ISLM lifecycle management, the IS lifecycle management, build this application using this scenario, the embedded machine learning models that are built. And on the top, you have your Fiori layer where your results are showcased. On the right-hand side, you see the business technology platform. In this scenario, in here, you have, again, there are a lot of these other things like the intelligent RPA, the business rules and workflow. I do not want to go into all of those, but if you pick up the SAP Data Intelligence or the AI Business Services, this is where you have, in this scenario, you have a data scientist, for example, or an external user interacting with this, and a central data scientist interacting with this. You have your external data sets coming in with the big data services. You can leverage that. You can build your machine learning service using SAP DI, the data intelligence, or AI business services. And this will be leveraging, and this can be built as a S4 app, third-party app, or it can be powered by using the SAP Fiori UI on the left-hand side. It can be consumed by the application sitting on the S4 HANA. In the same way, you also have SAP Analytics Cloud, which is also talking about the live connection with the database that is sitting in SAP HANA database on your S4 HANA cloud. So this is the overall big picture of the architecture overview that we have. So now let us continue further and go and look a bit more into how these embedded predictive models in the context of SAP S4HANA would look like and would work. So here what you see is that on the bottom layer, you have your SAP HANA database or your SAP HANA layer. There you have your application tables. And here you have, on top of your application table, you have the SQL views, which are generated. And then you have your ISLM repository, which is your Intelligent Scenario Lifecycle Management. We talk about this in the next unit at length. And then your ML models are created here. And based out of this SQL views, you build a CDS view for a particular ML scenario. And then you have your analytical engine, which is sitting on top of that. And this is your SAP S4 HANA application. And your ISLM services leverage the ISLM repository and then pull the ML model and then make sure that it is available in the CDS view. And all the modeling and administration is happening here. On the top layer, you have either OData services or other services where you can use the built-in consumer reports or the explorative consumer reports. Generally, what we do, like I've explained earlier, the data and the algorithms, everything set in the same stack when we are talking about embedded machine learning. Now, going further, let us quickly talk about these side-by-side machine learning models and how they are orchestrated. Here, again, here you need to now see both the different things. On the left-hand side, you have your SAP S4HANA, and on the right-hand side, you have your SAP Business Technology Platform. Or here, for example, I'm showing the data intelligence. This data intelligence sits on top of the SAP Business Technology Platform, or it can be your SAP AI Business Services. Here in this context, I'm taking the example of data intelligence. You have on the right-hand side, you have your option of, you have the business data lake, you have the option of pulling the data from these different data sources. Then you have your pipeline engine, which is used to build this inference pipelines or the training pipelines. And then you have the data science tools, with which you can build your machine learning services. And then you have the deep learning GPUs, and then you have the monitoring and the operating capabilities here. And you have the machine learning client, which is sitting on top of that. This machine learning client will directly talk or is directly connected into your ISLM service on the SAP S4HANA business, on the SAP S4HANA side. So when you're creating a side-by-side machine learning model, a particular instance is triggered and a particular channel is created so that your SAP data intelligence, the reference that you're creating, will create a particular reference on your ISLM that is reference that is sitting in the SAP S4HANA world or on the SAP S4HANA stack. And the business logic and the model repository are here. So here what is happening is that your data is residing on the SAP Business Technology Platform. Your algorithms might be residing either in, and the algorithms are residing on your SAP BTP, which is again, we are following the rule of the data and the algorithm staying at the same place so that it will be much faster. But the business logic can be sitting on the S4HANA. This is where we call it as a side-by-side machine learning approach. Going further down, we quickly want to see how things are organized in the context of your explorative predictive analytics on SAP Analytics Cloud. Here, like I explained, you could create quick win BI dashboards with smart services. And these, on the left-hand side, you see your, again, SAP S4HANA, your application, the APL library, application data. On the right-hand side, you see the Analytics Cloud, SAP Analytics Cloud. This SAP Analytics Cloud is again sitting on the SAP Business Technology Platform. The idea here is that using the SAP Analytics Cloud, you can create these quick application content or business models or user stories, which can have additional capabilities as well, like planning capabilities and other things. But in the context of this, what we are talking about is that you can use the business data lake, pull the data from different sources, but at the same time, you leverage a CDS view, a whitelisted CDS view, a functionality from S4HANA, using a live connection or a data acquisition, pull the data, create a data model here on SAP Analytics Cloud, and then leveraging either your smart insights, smart discovery, or search insights, or the smart predict services. You build your predictions, and these are built into your dashboards, the user dashboards. That is what is happening here. So with this, I would want to wrap the unit 2, and the key takeaways here would be, there are 4 key takeaways. We are always making sure that the golden rule of following and making sure that algorithms are always brought closer to the data, and your model training is always TCO relevant, the total cost of ownership relevant. Your data model of SAP HANA is based on your core data services, the CDS technology. And then you could leverage, or you could use multiple SAP S4HANA deployment options, whether it is on-premise or private cloud and public cloud. So that is what I want to leave you with when I am concluding this unit 2. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are tuning in from for this session. Really appreciate your time and efforts. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. Happy predicting the future with SAP technologies.